What's good, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Dirty, Dusty Records. This time, we're having a freak out, man. We're getting psychedelic. Now, the word psychedelic has a pretty loose definition. I think a lot of music from the 60s and early 70s kind of got bandied around with the word psychedelic. It was probably a great sales tool. Psych music was definitely associated with trip-out drugs like LSD, mushrooms, things like that. Definitely with the hippie movement. For the record, I'm not a big hippie fan, but some of that weird drony music really did it for me. Some of those really like garagey, twangy things that had strange lyrics really did it for me. Some of the stories behind those people also really did it for me. So I'm here today to show you some of that stuff. Let's begin. First album is Octopus 4. Name of the album is Confluence. They are a Canadian band. The thing I really dig about this album is it's kind of a tale of two sides. Side one just really kind of takes these old classical songs and flips them on their psychedelic head. The second side, which is more my favorite side, is called Beatles Rolling Stones, where, as you might imagine, they take Beatles songs, they take Rolling Stones songs, they play them in their own strange Canadian French psychedelic way. There's little bits of monologue on there where you'll hear bits spoken in French. And although there's covers on there, they definitely have their own takeoff on these things and make it their own album. Next up, straight out of Florida, is Terry Brooks with his band Strange. He really went for some out there sounds. Not sure if he's still around or not, but he put out an album after this called Raw Power, not to be confused with Iggy and the Stooges' Raw Power, and several other albums going all the way through to the 80s, all that had this trippy, flipped out sound. I'm gonna guess that Terry Brooks might have taken a couple pills, a couple other drugs in his lifetime. It definitely reflects in the music he has here. Strange thing about this specific album, Translucent World, he had a bunch of stock he was sitting on after the initial sale, so what he decided was if I go ahead and stamp reissue on there, I could sell it as a second pressing. So he did. So if you find a copy of this album with the words reissue stamped in black on the bottom front, it's an original issue that Terry Brooks basically took, rubber stamped reissue, and put out there again. Next album is on Alsha Records. It's called Songs of Hank Williams, A Return Trip by the Modern Sounds. This album is a bunch of songs by country great Hank Williams, flipped on their ear and done up with crazy acid-tinged psychedelic vibes. This is a total exploitive album, basically meant to take on the hippie, acid-filled, drug-loving kids and bringing them back to Hank Williams songs. It is probably not what you expect it to be. It's basically Hank Williams songs done with crazy lysergic guitar throughout it. There's a bit of a beat. It's more of a fun, like, go make yourself dance out to the kind of like Cat Strange trips from the Fillmore West, Fillmore East kind of vibes. But I really dig it. He does fantastic versions of songs like Your Cheating Heart. And I mean, Your Cheating Heart as an original song by Hank Williams is wonderful. I don't think I've heard a bad cover. Al Green does a great cover, but this is the strangest cover I've ever heard. It is flipped out. It is something where there's very little information on it. Probably a bunch of studio musicians that were in their 50s with big old beer guts, just trying to play out like a bunch of like 17-year-olds. At the bottom of the front cover, it says in a modern rock acid sound. They were really trying hard to hit an audience. Alsha Records is also known for putting out the 101 Strings albums. They put out The Animated Egg. Lots of just capitalizing and commercializing on anything they can from the youth.
I tried so hard, my dear, to show that you're my every dream. Yet you're afraid each thing I do is just some evil scheme.
The next album I'm going to show you is from 60s cheeseball Chubby Checker. This one called New Revelation. It came out in a couple different editions. Chubby Checker, sometime around the late 60s, really kind of fell in love with Jimi Hendrix sound. He tried to put out an album with this kind of sound to it, but the label wasn't having it. The label wanted his next version of Twist. Matter of fact, this album came out in Europe in the late 70s, and it's called Slow Twisted. There is no "let's twist again like we did last summer" on this one. Chubby Checker wasn't allowed to release this through his label in America. It only came out in Belgium, I think England, and then eventually in the early 80s in America on 51 West, which was a total like exploito, capitalize on someone's name kind of thing.
It is time that the thing has been coming for a long, long, long time. There is too much life and not enough time to live it. And there is so much strife and not enough time what to give it. And there is too much thought for people to try to get with it. And there is...
This here is the Projection Company with their album Give Me Some Lovin'. There was a dude named Jerry Cole. Jerry Cole put out a couple albums under all fake psychedelic names. I think the first one was called Psychedelic Guitars. He did this for the Custom label. Custom was a real cheeseball label where you could get, sweet Hawaiian sounds. But he also just made albums like this, trying to also capitalize on the youth. This one has like a little bit of funk to it, kind of soulful, but definitely cheeseball. I kind of like people when they try to sound like the original artist, but you know clearly they don't have the talent to do so, and this album does that. This album here is by the group The Freak Scene, and it's called Psychedelic Soul. And you can tell it's psychedelic because they put P's in front of both psychedelic and the word soul. It's by a guy named Rusty Evans. Rusty Evans put out another album before this. He named that group The Deep. This is the same group. It was a total studio band. He just reassembled the same guys, flipped them to a new name. But the Deep album is something that people go nuts for. This album came out in 1967. I think the Deep came out in 66. And this one has a lot of little Vietnam War things. They were really trying to appeal to the youth. There's a song on here called Draft Beer, Not Students. There's Middle Eastern kind of vibes on this one song called A Million Grains of Sand. I love all these Exploito albums. Exploito albums just seem to really go in without care. They didn't care about image because they were never going to show themselves. They were never going to tour. They were just going to be them. That's all for this Psychedelic Trip Out episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please leave comments. Tell me how much you like this, you hate this, how good it sounds on drugs, how bad it's ruining your high, all those things. Also, please subscribe. I beg of you, subscribe if you want to hear some more psychedelic, funky, folk, country, sad, new age, whatever. I will eventually make episodes in all these things, but I want your requests so I can go ahead and do it. Thank you. Bye.
Super cool. You are so bad at this.
Psychedelic freak out in a box, man!